Hello and welcome all back, everyone, to the Monsters, Myths, and Mayhem podcast. Like always, Silverwing or Silver here, and joining me still is
Chaotic. What do you mean still? Like, am I just going to stop joining you someday? My anxiety is peaked now.
oh, you're what?
Headliner, Silver's getting rid of me. Like 5 more episodes, you'll never see me again, guys. Just go look in the local pig farm, please. Help. They don't eat teeth.
She's going nowhere. She's under a soul contract she made with the Wolpentinger from last episode. Introduction out of the way. This is episode 14, and it is concerning a kitsune. I'm sure it's a very popular creature. I'm sure, Chaotic, you've heard of the kitsunes.
Yes. Again, mostly in media, but yes.
We are in a lot of media nowadays.
Yes, yes.
Kitsune is actually the word for fox in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
But it is also the word. It is also the name for the spirit fox, for a fox with more than one tail.
Yes.
Kitsune, I guess earlier, is a fox with more than one tail. It gains its second tail after it reaches the 100-year mark. That's when its second tail appears. And some sources say it gains a tail every 100 years, up to 9 tails. And 9 tails is the max. It cannot get any higher.
Mm-hmm.
When it reaches 9 tails, people start calling it the Kyubi no Kitsune,
Okay.
or 9-tailed fox. And when it reaches 9 tails, its fur changes and becomes white or gold. Gains the ability to hear and see anything happening anywhere in the world. Other tales credit them with infinite wisdom or omniscience. Did I pronounce that right? Omniscient. They become omniscient.
Omnipotence or omniscient?
They see and know everything.
Yes.
Something that a lot of gods claim to have, but this fox actually does have. And it started out just like a regular fox in the woods.
Just a regular fox?
Just a fox, and then that gets old.
Pretty
much lives for a very long time. The more tails it has, the more power it possesses. So if it's got 2 tails, stronger than the 1.
Right,
numbers
and so on
go.
and so forth, you know?
Yeah.
How numbers go.
Hey, some people might not know.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was rude of me to assume.
Stories depict them as intelligent beings which possess magical abilities that increase with their age and wisdom. They have many powers. Shape-shifting. Yeah, many powers to them. It is said that they learn to shapeshift when they first reach 100. Some say the more talented of the kitsune can shapeshift at age 50. But in order to shapeshift, some say they have to place reeds, a broad leaf, or a skull over its head. And it is common for kitsune to take on the form of beautiful women, young girls, or elderly men. Usually they take on the form of beautiful women. There's a lot of stories of them trying to lure men in, which we can get into later on.
I say most of the media stuff I see is the shape shifting.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the stories have them they have a hard time hiding their tails or ears or fur. Some part of their fox appearance is hard to is always easy. It's hard for them to hide. Sometimes there's different ways to discern a kitsune from a normal person when they're shapeshifted. Either they have a tail, which is the easiest spot. Their shadow is in the shape of a fox. Their reflection shows them as a fox. If you're in a big mirrored room and standing next to you is a fox in the mirror, but a person next to you, that'd be a kitsune. Some say they also possess the ability to possess somebody. And when they possess somebody, that person's face kind of turns more fox-like, more narrowed and pointed, and it is seen as a form of beauty. It was back in the day. Which got me thinking that might be where the term foxy lady came from.
That sounds pretty cool, though.
They still got a couple more powers. We'll finish the powers, I guess, first, and continue on with the possession and shapeshifting because that's their main abilities.
Okay.
But the different variants, there's different kinds of kitsune. Different kitsune have different powers. Some say they can generate lightning or fire, known as kitsunebi. They can willfully manifest in dreams of others. They can fly, invisible. They got invisibility, and creation of illusions so elaborate as to be almost indistinguishable from reality.
Oh, intense.
Some speak of kitsune with even greater powers, able to bend time and space, drive people mad, take on fantastical shapes such as a tree of incredible height, a second moon in the sky. Other kitsunes have characteristics reminiscent of vampires or succubi and feed on the life or spirit of human beings, generally through sexual contact. They may also use foxlights to lure unwary travelers into dangerous areas or simply cause them to become lost.
It's like a very deep lore, like very soul reaching deep. It could be very dark or very like soul searching almost.
It's nice that you mentioned that because there's actually two forms of kitsune. There is the Zenko, and then there is the Yako. The Zenko kitsune are literally, it means good foxes. There are benevolent celestial foxes associated with the goddess Inari. They are sometimes called Inari foxes. They're not actually Inari, but they're Inari's messengers. Inari uses them to communicate between the spiritual world and the mortal world. And there's different statues throughout Japan of them carrying different objects, which symbolizes different prosperities. They are the good foxes. They do the benevolent things with their powers. Usually, they don't do the mean, hateful tricks. They play the tricks nicely.
Like the more funny ones.
Yes, yeah, the harmless pranking foxes.
I got you.
They're often found in service to Shinto deities. The Shinto deity Inari or Buddhist Dakini Zenko can even be enshrined as gods themselves or as manifestations or emanations of higher deities. The Yankos, though, the Yakos, Yako, or Nogitsune,
No Gitsune?
Nogitsune, sounds right, are a type of kitsune magical foxes found in East Asian folklore. Specifically, the term refers to low-ranking wild kitsune that do not have a divine soul or serve as a messenger of gods. They are known for transforming into humans in folklore, where humans are tormented, tricked, or possessed by kitsune. The culprit is almost always a Nagitsune. They have keen danger. Nagitsune are cautious creatures with keen danger sense, dislike bright lights, and hide from the sun during the daytime. They are also afraid of bladed objects and will avoid swords and knives. They are frightened by dogs, like all kitsune are. And if they're disguised as a human and hear a dog, they might accidentally reveal their true form when startled. And the Zenko kitsune, back to the good ones, have a weird, not weird, it's got a ranking system to them. Zenko society is extremely complex, mirrors human society with families and tribes, ranks in various levels of awards and degrees. Sources disagree on the exact structure of Zenko society. According to one common classification, Zenkos are divided into 5 groups based on fur color. Tenko, heavenly foxes, Kinko, gold foxes, Ginkgo, silver foxes, Byako, white foxes, and kokuko, black foxes. Another classification divides them into 3 social ranks with no regards to coloring, with Tenko as heavenly foxes, Kuko as sky foxes, and Kiko as spirit foxes. Still, other classifications exist. Individual shrines such as the Shushimi Inari Shrine in Kyoto often have their own degrees and ranks to bestow upon hard-working Zenko. The one area where everyone agrees is that Zenko stands in stark contrast to Yako, the wild foxes.
I'm not gonna lie to you, and I know we're not to the mayhem part of it, but so far I would definitely try and pet one.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
of course. I think anybody would try and pet one if they find one.
I mean, and they're so like decorative.
Yeah,
Like they're
it's
not just foxes.
a lot of the Zenkos are usually seen with jewels, either wrapped around their tails or in their mouth. Usually,
Ooh.
some people say is where their power comes from or is held. And if somebody gets a hold of their pearl or their jewel,
Mm-hmm.
they can control the kitsune, be in command of it.
Hmm.
But you will be in a world of trouble if they get their freedom back because they are extremely freedom loving. But yeah, their ranking system in their society is kind of wild, especially since no one agrees on how they're ranked.
Right.
We'll go back to possession. Possession by if you are to be possessed by a kitsune, you would be called a kitsune suki. Tsuki suki is how I presume that's pronounced.
Unsure, but you're doing very good.
It means state of being possessed by a fox. The victims are usually young women whom the foxes enter their body by going beneath their fingernails or through their breasts.
Oh my.
In some cases, the victim's facial expressions are said to change in such a way they resemble those of a fox. If a person who is possessed was illiterate at the time, they gain the ability to be literate and be able to read it.
Wow, what a power.
So foxes,
Is that in like any language?
yeah, I believe so. It didn't specify. It just said they gained the ability to read and be literate, which I'd imagine that'd be any language.
Right. I mean, yeah.
But if the fox leaves you, you become illiterate again.
That is highly unfortunate. Like being able to read and like do any language like literacy wise, and then they just decide they're gonna leave and now you can't do any of it anymore. That would be devastating on your brain.
You would also be possessed, so I don't know if you'd really actually notice you gained the ability.
I don't know. Some possessions are like, like they're just frontal and you're still back there somewhere.
Yeah, the kitsune suki is usually seen and attributed to malign or evil intents. They're usually with the yako, and sometimes when you're possessed, this is for a quote or written verse in, I think it's a book called "The Glimpses of Unfamiliar Japan," Volume 1, from folklorist Lafcadio Hearn. Describes this condition of being possessed as strange is the madness of those into whom demon foxes enter. Sometimes they run naked, shouting through the streets. Sometimes they lay down and forth froth at the mouth and yelp as a fox yelps. And on some parts of the body of the possessed, a moving lump appears under the skin, which seems to have a life of its own. Prick it with a needle and it glides instantly to another place. By no grasp can it be so tightly compressed by a strong hand that it will not slip from under the fingers. Possessed folk are also said to speak and write languages of which they were totally ignorant prior to possession. They eat only what foxes are believed to like: tofu, abarage, azukimeshi, so on. And they eat a great deal, alleging that not they, but the possessing fox are hungry.
Hmm.
So you would gain the ability to read and write different languages.
Yeah. So you would like learn all languages, like anything you were present, like in the presence of, basically, or needed to learn.
Yeah. Might be part of the omniscience coming through of some of the
Right.
kitsune. And when they become unpossessed, they will never be able to eat any of that food again. And you also lose the wisdom. Exorcisms, often performed at Inari shrines, may induce a fox to leave its host. In the past, when such gentle measured failed, or a priest was not available, victims of kitsunesuki were beaten or badly burned in hopes of forcing the fox to leave. Then, as seen on one account, a way to get the fox to leave is to have someone bring a pack of dogs and just have them lick your entire body.
Uh-huh.
That's supposed to scare the kitsune out of your body
What the fuck? Like, just licking just a bunch of dogs,
because they're terrified of dogs.
but like they're part of the canine family? Does
That
it have to be like
foxes
hunting dogs though? Does it have to be like hound dogs?
just said dogs in all my descriptions, so I'm not sure what type of dogs would be available
'Cause, like,
in
I
the
feel
early
like-
stores of Japan.
Well, I'm sure that it was probably something like hunting dogs, but my head went straight to modern day society kitsune and a chihuahua pack. I feel like the kitsune'd be like, probably not.
Probably not chihuahuas. I'd imagine probably
Chihuahuas.
what did I say
Couldn't
that
say
weird?
World of Warcraft, but we can say chihuahuas. Oh my god.
Sometimes entire families were ostracized by their communities after a member of the family was thought to be possessed. And if the entire family is thought to be possessed, it was just entirely bad. No one would talk to you.
Oh.
I also heard recently, just from one source, you know how they answer their phone in Japan?
Answer their phone? No.
They say moshi moshi,
Oh, okay.
which the one source I've seen this in, if the person cannot say moshi moshi, they are to be believed to be a kitsune, because kitsune cannot say moshi moshi.
Oh shit.
Let me look that up real quick just to see what moshi moshi is, because
I was like, I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't say it just because I feel like I'd mess it up. And then they'd be like, oh, you're a kitsune.
Okay, so from what I see on Google, moshi moshi means hello. Like humble way of speaking.
So kind of like in France, you can say bonjour or salut. And salut's the much casual way of saying it. So that's like what you would say to walking up to a friend. Like salut. But when you're walking up with somebody you don't know, bonjour. Like I feel like that's maybe the same concept.
Probably. If anybody from Japan listening would like to let us know, please do. Any questions so far, Chaotic?
I don't think so. I think I got the gist. It's kind of what I expected. There's some new things obviously that I didn't know because media is not going to tell you everything, but I think I'm following well enough. I think I got it.
They're both good and bad ranking systems. Story time. There was a folk story that was illustrate the imperfections of Kitsune's transformation. There was an old man of importance staying at this inn, and he went to take a bath. The bath was too hot and scalded his foot, and in his pain he ran from the bathroom naked. When the people of the household saw him, they were astonished to see he had fur covering much of his body, along with a fox's tail. Then he transformed in front of them, becoming an elderly fox and running away. That kind of illustrates how there can be just lose their grip on their transformation. In the next story, it's longer, but it was also in the news recently. Do you remember, it was a month ago, 2 months ago, about the kitsune killing stone that broke?
Yes.
Okay. This is related to her.
Okay.
It is Tamamo no Mae. Tamamo no Mae was born, from what I've seen, about 3,500 years ago in what is now China in her early life. So, Tamamo no Mae, she goes by many names, but Tamamo no Mae is Tamamo no Mae. Just call it Tamamo. She started off in China, right? She was a powerful kitsune then, and she was able to get in favor with the king. Not king. She disguised herself as a beautiful woman and became the favorite concubine of King Zhao of Shang. At this time, her name was Daji. Was a model of human depravity. She held orgies in the palace gardens. Her fondness for watching and inventing new forms of torture are legendary. Daji eventually brought about the fall of the entire Shang dynasty. She managed to escape execution and fled to the Magadha kingdom in India. Magadha, she was known as Lady Kaio, and became a consort of the king, Kalmashapada, known in Japan as Hanzoku. She used her beauty and charms to dominate the king, causing him to devour children, murder priests, and commit other unspeakable horrors. Eventually, whether because she ran out of children to eat or because Kalmashapada began to turn away from her to Buddhism, she fled back to China. So, China to India, now she's going back to China. And this time it's the Zhao dynasty. She called herself Bao Si. It was known as one of the most desirable women in all of China. She became a concubine again, this time the King Yu. Not satisfied as just a mistress, she manipulated the king into deposing his wife, Queen Xin, and making Bao Shi his new queen. Though she was beautiful, Bao Si rarely ever smiled. In order to please his beautiful new wife, King Yu committed acts of such evil and atrocity that eventually all of his nobles abandoned and betrayed him. Eventually, King Yu was killed and Bao Si captured, and the Western Zhao dynasty was brought to an end. Somehow, Bao Si managed to escape again and went into hiding for many years. Next time she was mentioned, she transformed and disguised herself as a 16-year-old girl named Wakamo. She tricked the leaders of the 10th century Japanese envoy to the Tang dynasty, Kibi no Maki, Abe no Nakamo, and Ganjin, as they were preparing to return home to Japan. Wakamo joined the crew and took the ship to Japan, where she hid herself away for 300 years.
Oh, she hid.
Yeah. Which I imagine if you could shapeshift, you could probably hide pretty well, especially with the freedom to move about.
Right.
In 1090s, she resurfaced once again. This time, she transformed herself into a human baby.
Oh.
And hid by the side of the road. A married couple found the baby. Yeah. The married couple found the baby, rescued it, taking her as their daughter, and naming her Mikuzume. She proved to be an exceedingly intelligent and talented young girl, and was so beautiful that she attracted the attention of everyone around her when she was 7 years old. Mikuzume recited poetry before the emperor. His imperial majesty immediately took a liking to her and employed her as a servant in his court. Mikuzume excelled at court, absorbing knowledge like a sponge. There was no question she could not answer, whether it was about music, history, astronomy, religion, or Chinese classics. Her clothes were always clean and unwrinkled. She always smelled pleasant. Mikuzume had the most beautiful face in all of Japan, and everyone who saw her loved her. During the summer of her 18th year, a poetry and instrumental recital was held in Mikuzume's honor. During the recital, an unexpected storm fell upon the palace. All of the candles in the recital room was snuffed, leaving the participants in the dark. Suddenly, a bright light emanated from Mikuzume's body. Everybody at the court was so impressed by her genius and declared that she must have had an exceedingly good and holy previous life. That's when she was given the name Tamamo no Mae. Emperor Toba, already exceedingly fond of her, made her his consort. Almost immediately after she became the emperor's consort, the emperor fell deathly ill. None of the court physicians could determine the cause, and so an onmyoji, Abe no Yasunari, was called. Abe no Yasunari read the emperor's fortune and divined that he was marked by a bad omen. After that, the highest priests and monks were summoned to the palace to pray for the emperor's health, and there was pretty much no effect by all the praying, and the emperor continued to grow worse. Abe no Yasunari was summoned again to read the emperor's fortune. This time, to his horror, the onmyoji discovered that the emperor's beloved Tamano Mae was the cause of his illness. She was a kitsune in disguise, and was shortening the emperor's lifespan in order to take over as ruler of Japan. Emperor Taibo was reluctant to believe the diviner's words, but agreed to test Tamano Mae just to be sure. And that's a little bit where the succubi part comes in, where they were draining. She was draining his life force.
Right. Kitsunes are like a little bit of everything.
A little bit of Transformer, a little bit of succubi, a little bit of God's messengers. In order to test Tamamo no Mae, to be sure, the onmyoji
We're
prepared
at a loss for words. Hang on.
Yeah.
404 silver error. He's down.
Too many words on the screen right now. I was trying to read them. But in order to test Tamamo no Mae, to be sure to save the emperor's life, Abe no Yasunari prepared Taizen Fuken no Sasei, the most secret and most powerful spell known to Onmyoda. Tamamo no Mae was ordered to perform part of the ritual. They reasoned that an evil spirit would not be able to participate in such a holy ritual. Though she was reluctant to participate, the emperor's ministers persuaded her. They told her that it would increase her standing and admiration among the court. She had little choice but to accept. When the ritual was performed, Tamamo no Mae dressed even more beautifully than normal. She recited the holy words as expected and played her part extremely well. But just as she prepared to wave the ceremonial staff, she vanished. Abe no Yasunari's divination was confirmed. The court flew into an uproar. Soon after, word arrived that women and children were disappearing near Nasuno in Shimosuke province. The court sorcerers determined that Tamano Mae was the cause, and it was decided that she must be destroyed once and for all. The emperor summoned the best warriors in all the land, and then charged the most superb of them, Kazasano Suke and Miyuranosuke, to find Tamano Mae. The warriors gladly accepted the honor. They purified themselves and set out with an army of 80,000 men to slay the nine-tailed kitsune. That's a lot of people to slay one.
Yeah.
Upon reaching Nasuno, the army quickly found the kitsune. The warriors chased her for days and days, but the fox used her magical powers and outsmarted them time and time again. Easily escaping the army grew weary and frustration set in. It seemed that nothing they did was working. However, Kazunosuke and Uranosuke would not accept the shame of defeat and vowed to press on. They practiced harder, honing their tactics, and eventually picked up the Kitsune's trail. One night, Uranosuke had a prophecy dream. A beautiful young girl appeared before him crying. She begged, "Tomorrow I will lose my life to you. Please save me." Murasuke adamantly refused, and upon waking, the warrior set out again to find Tamano Mae. Sure enough, the next day they caught her. Murasuke fired 2 arrows, one through the fox's flank and the other through its neck. Kazunosuke swung his blade. It was over just as the dream had said. However, Tamano Mae evil did not end with her death. 1 year after she died, Emperor Kono died heirless. The following year, her lover and former Emperor Toba died as well. A succession crisis ignited between forces loyal to Emperor Go Shikakawa and forces loyal to former Emperor Tsutoku. This crisis started the Fujiwara Minamoto rivalry that led to the Genpei War, end of the Heian period, and the rise of the first shogun. As if that were not enough, Tamino Mei's spirit haunted a massive boulder which killed every living thing that touched it, which happened to be the boulder that broke this year.
Right.
With no reason or expectation why.
Ooh.
So
Spicy.
did she come back? Maybe. Who knows?
Possibly. Maybe.
And that also leads to how did they kill the kitsune? Well, the only way to kill a kitsune is to cut off all its tails. Well, to be more precise, to cut off its first tail. But just to be safe, to know you cut off its first tail, you might as well cut off all its tails. And that's the story. It's a little bit longer story than normal, but hope everybody enjoyed it. So now we shall move on with the mayhem.
Okay, so mayhem. Mayhem. Anyways, I don't know. I don't know how I feel. Like a part of me is like, oh, there's not too much mayhem. Like they're generally mind your own, but I feel like there's a lot of power there.
I think it'll be split. I think the Zenko would be not chaotic, not mayhemy, but the Yako, like Tamino Mei, if they get greedy for power, I think that could cause some issues.
Right.
In the modern day time, I think we got enough mirrors around everywhere and dogs everywhere. I don't think they'd be able to stay hidden very well. But if they stay invisible in the countryside, maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it'd be half and half, but like I still feel like I don't know. It's like hit or miss because some of it's paranormal, obviously, like possession, being able to interact in ways that aren't necessarily like a face to face or a sight kind of like fighting style. It would be different and be difficult, but I feel like they just wouldn't be super high on the mayhem meter. I feel like it'd be a little lower as far as like how crazy it could get. But there's a lot of them. It could go hit or miss. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it depends on if the Zenko keep the Yako in checks, if there's a checks and balance there in their society. If they're not, then that's just kind of free for all roaming. I think it'd be more on the lower, more local scale chaos. Small towns, gossip. Yeah, something. Maybe they're all movie stars. I don't know if their form would be revealed in the camera since cameras have mirrors in them. If they can't actually.
Right.
You take a picture of a lady and you're standing next to a fox in the developed photo.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it would be a matter of like who, what, where, when, I think, for as far as everything mayhem wise with the kitsune goes. Just a matter of which kind, what the intention is, who they're going after. Like, I actually feel like the kitsune would be highly disappointed in today's modern society. I feel like possession wise and like, like interaction wise, I just feel like there wouldn't be a whole lot of interest from them for us, like for our species. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Probably not. There's not as much because everybody's already tricking everybody anyway. So I don't think they really get much out of actually possessing or transforming into somebody other than just jokes or laughs. I think most of it would be harmless.
Mm-hmm.
I just remembered back in the day, psychiatrists actually related Kitsune Suki, the possession, when Kitsune possessed people. They later found out that was probably due to something related to schizophrenia.
Right.
Possibly. I didn't dig too
I mean,
much
it makes sense. But yeah, I like as far as modern media portrays them, like for most of the stuff I've seen them in, they're usually usually it's the helpful end of things. Like they're usually helpful or they're like using their tails for good. Like, they're like using their lives to do good things. So
yeah. I seen them, I believe they got some in Oh, what's that anime's name? Okay, so I know they're in One Piece. One Piece has kitsune. Naruto has kitsune. Pokemon has kitsune. With Ninetales and Vulpix, they're kitsune. In Naruto, it's Kurama, who is the nine-tailed fox that resides inside Naruto. He, I believe, would be considered a Yako.
Mm-hmm.
And the kitsune is also just everywhere, pretty much in media. Anything Tails the Fox is believed in Sonic is believed to be
Yep.
marked off a kitsune.
I have heard that theory. Yep.
Pretty much any monster or fantasy anime usually brings in a kitsune because they're so popular within the culture.
They are. The one of the specific shapeshifter ones I'm talking about is Teen Wolf. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but one of the girls on there ends up being one.
Was she helpful or did she trick people a lot?
No, she was very helpful. Her mom was a little tricky, and it wasn't like the bad trickster. It was like good stuff, and it was mostly she tricked to protect her kid, her daughter that was taking on the kitsune role. But she ended up being very, very helpful, and her 9 tails ended up being her weapon. So like her mother's weapon that she passed down was 9 pieces of a sword that turned into like a huge like katana. It was really cool. But yeah, it was just neat.
I think it's also in Supernatural in an episode. A kitsune appears there.
Ooh, see, I've not watched all the way through Supernatural. I know SPN fans, do not shoot me if you're listening, please.
In 1998, Dean and John hunted one while leaving Sam alone, where he encountered the daughter of the kitsune. They were hunting. An encounter with a kitsune seems to be uncommon. Episode 703, The Girl Next Door, and 1017, Inside Man, are the 2 episodes with kitsune. Anyways, that seems to be all for the kitsune episode.
I feel like it was a good one, very informative. It was a lot of storytelling, but I like the kitsune. Like you said though, it could like endlessly go on. There's so much to learn about them and so much of them.
And the culture is so much more in depth than I went into with the powers and the actual cultural significance to Japan. But yeah, back to you, Chaotic, with the weather.
Whoa, with the weather.
Or the outro.
Tomorrow it's looking cloudy and rainy because we won't have any podcast things to do. So join us again next Monday on Monsters, Myths, and Mayhem, found on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Anchor.fm. Silver and Chaotic talk about how monsters and myths came to be and how they would be received in modern-day society. Follow, like, and subscribe to support. Also find the podcast on Twitter and Discord with the links below to help keep up to date with the newest merch and activity. Besides, who knows what mayhem we will get into next.
And the episode after this, guys, is a guest episode.
Woo!
Should we reveal the guest now, Chaotic, or just wait till the episode?
We should wait till the episode.
Okay. Tune in next time, the next episode of Mayhem.